Hey, this is Paula Hines Lonergan, and I wanted to continue my conversation about dissociative identity disorder. But firstly, I wanted to thank Dissocia, DID, for correcting me on the pronunciation. I was saying disassociative, but the word is dissociative identity disorder. So I thank you so much for correcting me on that so I can pronounce it correctly. I was putting an extra A and extra AS in there. So I thank you for that. But in dealing with and learning more about my own new diagnosis of dissociative identity disorder, it's interesting because I was talking to one person kind of about the issue, and the first question out of their mouth was, "Oh, is it like Sybil?" Now if you know anything about the movie Sybil, years ago there was a psychiatrist who had a patient, and the patient seemed to exhibit multiple personalities, and the multiple personalities were very divergent, very different, and the multiple personalities would shift. Now, I think it's been so long since I've seen the movie Sybil, I can't describe it exactly, but most people are familiar with the general idea. But there's different levels of dissociative identity disorder and degrees. It's common, as you will see in many people's YouTube videos, that they may have, like I said, different persons, individuals that they've kind of developed. Some may be male, some female, like I said, different genders, different ages, different backgrounds, etc. And that was their way of coping with a trauma by developing these different identities. And I kind of say within self. In my particular case, it's more my younger selves, and researching it, they're called young alters of myself. My abuse went on for so long, for so many years, during a very critical time of my life, that being childhood, where I'm, growing and developing, but because of the abuse, it was necessary at various times for me to, I guess, almost check out, develop other identities in order to cope with the abuse at that given time. I'm going to read it from the book, The Courage to Heal. The Courage to Heal by Ellen Bass and Laura Davis. Okay, this is the way it describes it here. I want to make sure that I communicate this properly. Okay, when there is no way to physically escape the pain, terror, and despair of severe abuse, children sometimes create new selves, also known as alternate personalities, to separate from the abuse and to bear the burden. So when a child experiences abuse, they develop selves. As it describes it here, create new selves. Now, of course, the person doesn't literally split up. It's all something that the mind does in order to cope with the abuse. So for myself, I have different ages of myself within the 51-year-old. Can you imagine? And it just depends on the situation, on when they not show themselves, but I'll just use that, when they show themselves, or when I have a sense that it's like my younger alter is feeling a certain amount of discomfort or pain. Now, when it comes to healing from this, I want to again read from the book, The Courage to Heal, to make sure that I communicate it correctly. Once again, page 17 of the Courage to Heal book. But it says, each alternate personality holds a part of the experience. Each needs to be involved in the work of healing and need to learn to work together. Because previously I may have said that they need to like come together, but it's basically a matter of working together. And as I'm doing my therapy, it's also these alternates need to be acknowledged, as well, and individually healed. Remember, it was the mind's way of trying to cope with the abuse. I mean, so in my particular case, The abuse started at age 5. So there's the 5-year-old that was abused, the 6-year-old that was abused, the 7, the 8, the 9, the 10-year-old that was abused, on into my teenage years. There was always something that was being done that was a violation of myself sexually and physically. How did I cope? It was through disassociating and having these identities to help me get through these situations. And it's interesting because in my healing over the years and in my research that I've done, that a dissociative identity disorder, they say a lot of times comes after 7 or 8 years of regular therapy. So it's interesting that with a therapist specialized was able to identify that. So I'm continuing my healing. I share because it's not uncommon. I share because there's others in pain. And the way to cope is to communicate. My name is Paula Hines Lonergan, and time's up for me to be silent. Please send me a message. And if you have a suggestion, input, thought, correction, I'm open to it all because I'm constantly learning too. Paula Hines Lonergan and Time's Up for Silence. Reach me at timesupforsilence@gmail.com, or I'm going to put my address. You can send me a letter. Let's keep talking.